Everyone tells you buying a house is the ultimate goal, a symbol of success, stability, adulthood. But to be honest with you guys, buying a home can actually set you back, not only financially, but emotionally and even mentally, if you do it for the wrong reasons. Now, I am not saying that owning a home is bad, but I am saying it is not always the smart move that people make it out to be. And after buying one myself about 2.5 years ago, I learned firsthand that what is sold as the American dream sometimes can feel like a financial trap. So in this video, I am going to break down why buying a house might be one of the most overhyped decisions out there, especially in today's market. Now, let us start out with just debunking this myth here. And that is that owning a home automatically makes you wealthy. People love to say that renting is throwing money away or you are paying someone else's mortgage. But the part that nobody mentions is that you are always paying someone's mortgage. The only difference is whether you are paying the bank through interest, property taxes, and maintenance, or you are paying a landlord for flexibility and freedom. And the reality of all of this is that home ownership, it is not guaranteed wealth. It is a leveraged bet which can definitely work out long term. But like any bet, timing, interest rates, and opportunity costs all matter. So let us talk about some of the hidden costs that they do not tell you about. So when people calculate whether they can afford a house or not, they mainly look at the mortgage payment, and that is it. But the mortgage payment is only the beginning. You have got property taxes that can increase every year. You have home insurance, which has been skyrocketing lately. You have things like repairs, maintenance, HOA fees, lawn care, and random things that you have to fix, especially if they break at a really bad time. That can be a huge headache to deal with. I remember reading that the average homeowner spends between 1% to 4% of their home's value per year on maintenance, which is quite a bit. I mean, that is thousands of dollars a year just to stay even. And when you compare that to investing that same amount of money into an index fund or maybe building a business, the math starts to look very different. And so let me share a little bit about my personal experience buying a house. So the main reason that I wanted to buy a house was in my early 20s. I decided that I wanted to build wealth through two main ways. I wanted half of my wealth to come from the stock market and the other half to come from real estate. And after buying my first home about 2.5 years ago, I was 24 years old at the time. I have decided to now go primarily into stocks and only a little bit into real estate. I lived in the house for a little bit over a year, and it is now a rental property that is just break even on cash flow. So I am not making any money, but I am not losing any money either each month. And the main reason I wanted to buy was I thought, if I could buy my first house before 25, I would be in a really good position. And then I could turn it into a rental and get a bunch of cash flow and then take the cash flow and save that up and buy my second house. And then I have 2 rentals and I have a bunch of cash flow, and I have decided I no longer want to do that for a couple of different reasons. One of them, and one of the main things that I just talked about, is owning a home is a lot more expensive than you think. For example, when I lived in an apartment before I bought my home, my water bill was maybe, $40 or $50 a month. But once I lived in my house, which was just a very normal house, it was a 3-bed, 2-bath, nothing huge, nothing small either, just very, normal house. I now had a front yard and a backyard. And so when the sprinklers were watering, that was wasting a ton of water. So my first couple of water bills, I am not kidding, were literally $250 to $300. And the solution for this was to run the sprinklers way less. Before I was running them 3 times a week. I changed it to 1 time a week. That way I was still watering the grass and it was not dying, but it was not flourishing either. And even then, my water bill was still like $125 to $140 most months, which was pretty annoying. And so, not only was I paying my mortgage, but I had to pay a lot higher water bill. My electric bill was kind of the same. The internet, of course, was pretty much the same. But then you have lawn care, and if the HOA ever complains about anything, you have to have somebody come out and fix it, which is pretty annoying, and that costs money. And on top of that, you have different repairs that happen. So, little things will break, and if the home is not under warranty, which mine was for the first year, but a little bit after that, I had a couple of things come up which ended up costing me money. So that is another thing that is tough there, is you have expenses along the way, and that is very annoying about owning a home, especially when you compare it to an apartment. Like if you have a problem in your apartment, let us say that the garbage disposal is clogged, then you can just call somebody, and they will fix it pretty quickly. Or let us say that the laundry is not working or the dishwasher is not working. You can just submit a maintenance request and they will come fix it either that day or pretty quickly. Compared to when you own a home, you either have to do all these things yourself or pay somebody else to do it. So, that has been my experience owning a home. And the thing I did not like about this was not only are you paying the mortgage payment, but your utilities are way higher when you own a home. And not only that, you can have expenses that hit you along the way, and you are going to have to either pay for all those or become a handyman, whichever one sounds better to you. And so let us talk a little bit about an opportunity cost here. Every dollar that is tied up in a down payment or home equity is a dollar that is not compounding for you elsewhere. So let us say you drop $60,000 on a down payment, which if that was 20%, that would mean that you are buying a $300,000 house, which is pretty hard to find nowadays. But for the sake of example, let us call it, $60K. So that is the down payment amount, and if that money was invested in the S&P 500 and growing at 8% a year, then that is nearly $130,000 in 10 years. And people do not think of it this way because owning a house feels like an investment. But unless you are renting out rooms or flipping it, it is a liability that could cost you money every month. Like, yes, do not get me wrong. Owning a home is an asset, but the only way to actually get the equity out of your home is either by refinancing or selling the house or taking out like a line of credit. All these things I do not really want to do. So for example, let us pretend that you do the Dave Ramsey route and you buy a $500,000 house and you pay it off as quickly as possible. You no longer have a mortgage payment, which is great, but that $500,000 of wealth, you are not actually getting that unless if you sell the home or refinance, which is kind of annoying in my opinion. And not only that, but real estate is very illiquid. So what I mean by that is if you have $60,000 in stocks, you can sell the stocks when the market opens and get that cash back in your account pretty quickly. Compared to if you want to sell a home, you got to put it on the market, and then not only that, but you have to pay fees to the agents, the brokers, all these different people when the home actually gets sold. And that is assuming the home does get sold. It could just sit on the market for 6 months and nobody buys it. So the lack of liquidity is another thing I am not a huge fan of when it comes to real estate. And on top of this, real estate does not grow at that quickly of a rate. It typically goes up between 3 to 5% a year compared to the stock market is more like 8 to 10%. And I will even make an entire video comparing real estate versus stock market. But at the end of the day, it is just a lot more expensive than people make it out to be. And one thing I want to touch up on that I said earlier is sometimes people say that renting is throwing money away. And I actually think renting gets a bad rap because it actually gives you something that is very valuable. And that is flexibility. If you are renting, you can move for a better job opportunity. You can also avoid major repair costs, and you can skip the stress of rising property taxes. Like, sure, your rent is going to go up each year, but also if you own a home and let us say it is $500,000 one year, and then the next year it is $530,000, there is a good chance you are going to have to pay more on your monthly mortgage payment because the home went up in value, which then causes the property taxes to go up. And plus, when you invest the money that you would have spent on a down payment or repairs, you might actually end up ahead financially. There is a lot of math to support this, especially if your interest rate is not that high. Like if you have an interest rate of like 2, 3, or 4%, it does not really make sense to pay off your home earlier when you could just go get 8 to 10% in the market every year. And do not get me wrong, the leverage side of real estate is very, very nice, especially if you get some pretty good appreciation on the house. But in my opinion, it is not worth the headache and the expenses that come along the way. And going back to the renting thing, I feel like renting only becomes a bad move if you are spending the difference instead of investing it. Now, to be fair, buying is not always a mistake. If you plan to stay in one place long term, you want stability, and you are living below your means, it can be a great move. So, some of the key reasons that you want to consider before buying is the first one being that you can comfortably afford the house after all hidden costs. This means not only the mortgage payment, but all of the utilities, and maybe you have an extra emergency fund for different repairs that may have to happen across the house. That way, you have a pretty good cushion, and if something comes up, you are not drowning and feeling behind financially. The next thing I would say is that you are not depending on home appreciation to make it worth it. So like if you are buying a house and you know it is $500,000, if you are thinking the next year it is going to go up to $550,000 and you are going to sell it, do not buy a house. Real estate is a very long-term investment. I feel like if you are going to buy a house and you plan on selling it, you gotta wait at least 3 to 5 years. That is just my opinion. But again, it kind of just depends where the home value is by the time you sell it, you may get lucky. But for most people, real estate is a very long-term play, as most of you probably already know from either your parents or grandparents, because they bought a house for $100,000 in 1995, and now it is worth $800,000, like they have been holding it for like 30 plus years. So if you are going to hold it for decades, I am sure you will do very well long term, but do not depend on home appreciation to make it worth it. And like I said, it is a very illiquid investment. And then the final thing is that you are buying because it fits your lifestyle, not because society is pressuring you to. Do not buy a home if it puts you in a bad financial position. You do not want to be house rich, meaning that your mortgage payment and your equity in your home, that is your only form of wealth that you can show for. The last thing you want is for your mortgage payment and your utilities to be a large percentage of your take-home pay. That can be an absolute nightmare and extremely stressful too. Because if you have any lack of job security, you are basically toast at that point. And so you want to make sure you avoid that to avoid all the stress. And so, do not get me wrong. Yeah, buying a house can be amazing. But in our current housing environment and market right now in 26, we are not really seeing home prices come down yet. Interest rates have been sitting between 6 and 7% for a while now. So back in 2020, as well as 2020, you could buy a $500,000 house at, 3% interest, but now it is 6%, which means basically your income has to be double in order to afford that same $500,000 house. So the market right now is just brutal when it comes to real estate. Please do not let society pressure you into buying a house, especially if it does not look good on paper. Like if the math does not check out and you think it is going to put you in a bad position. It is much better to wait and invest that money. But that is just my opinion on this. For some people, the smartest move is renting and investing the difference. And for others, it is buying smart and holding very long term. Either way, do not buy into the hype and build the life that gives you financial freedom, not financial pressure. So that is it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, drop a like down below. I will see you in the next one. Peace. The thing about building wealth is that it is often about what you do not spend just as much as what you do invest. If you are tying up all your capital in a single asset that requires constant maintenance, you are effectively capping your growth potential. I see so many people my age rushing into 30-year commitments because they think that is what a responsible adult does. But responsibility is about math, not about tradition. If the math says that renting a modest place and dumping $3,000 a month into a diversified portfolio beats owning a house with 5% interest, then renting is the responsible choice. We have to stop looking at our primary residence as a golden goose. It is a place to live first and an investment second. And if it costs you your peace of mind or your ability to pivot in your career, the price is simply too high. I want you guys to really look at your numbers. Use a rent versus buy calculator. Factor in a 2% maintenance cost and a 3% annual increase in property taxes. If the numbers still make sense for your lifestyle, then go for it with your eyes wide open. But if you are doing it because your parents said so or because you are tired of your landlord, just remember that the bank is a much tougher landlord than the one you have. Now, when you rent, your rent is the maximum you will pay for housing that month. When you own, your mortgage is the minimum you will pay for housing that month. Read that again and let it sink in. There is a massive difference between those two realities. One allows you to sleep at night knowing your expenses are capped. The other keeps you up wondering when the roof is going to leak or when the HVAC is going to quit. I am choosing flexibility for now. I am choosing the ability to move to a new city if a massive opportunity comes up. I am choosing to have my money work for me in the global economy rather than being buried in the backyard. Building wealth is a marathon, not a sprint. And sometimes the best way to run that marathon is to travel light. I want you to be free. I want you to have options. And most of all, I want you to make decisions based on facts and your own goals, not on a script written 40 years ago. The world has changed, the economy has changed, the way we build wealth has changed. It is time our housing decisions caught up to that reality. Thanks for sticking around until the end. It means a lot that you are taking your financial future seriously. Keep grinding, keep investing, and I will be back with more data-driven insights soon. Remember that every dollar you save and invest today is a seed for your future freedom. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. Stay disciplined, stay focused, and as always, stay hungry for that financial independence. This journey is not easy, but it is definitely worth it. I will catch you in the next video. Take care of yourselves and your bank accounts. Seriously, look at the math before you sign those papers. It might be the best 15 minutes you ever spend. Alright, I am out for real this time. See you guys. Peace. I have been thinking a lot about the psychology of the home purchase recently. It is interesting how we are programmed to think that land is the only real asset, but in a digital world, your skills and your liquid capital are often more valuable than a fixed location. Think about the founders who started companies in their garages. They did not care about the curb appeal, they cared about the growth. That is the mindset we need to adopt. Focus on the growth, focus on the compound interest. Everything else is just noise. If you have a house and you love it, that is amazing. I am happy for you. But if you are stressed and house poor, know that there is another way. You are not a failure if you sell and go back to renting. You are a strategist. You are reallocating your capital to where it performs best. That is what the pros do, and that is what I am doing. It feels good to have that weight off my shoulders. It feels good to see my brokerage account grow faster than my property value ever did. I hope this gives some of you the permission you needed to wait or to change your mind. The market is not going anywhere. There will always be another house to buy when the time is right for you. Until then, keep building your empire, one share at a time, one side hustle at a time, one smart decision at a time. The future is bright for those who pay attention. I am glad you are one of them. Let us keep winning together. Talk soon. Goodbye.